The year is 1347. Picture yourself walking through a bustling medieval town, but don't imagine quaint cobblestone streets with flower boxes like a Renaissance fair. Imagine ankle-deep sludge. The roads are narrow, dark, and reek with a stench so powerful you gag before taking 3 steps. Garbage piles up along the walls, rotting in the summer heat. Buckets of human waste are casually flung from upstairs windows with a careless shout of Gardelow, a warning that rarely saved anyone's clothes or dignity from a splash of foul brown water. The concept of plumbing is practically non-existent. Instead, people live alongside their own waste, rats scurrying freely through the streets, feasting on scraps and filth. The air smells of smoke, mold, manure, and worse. To a medieval peasant, this was normal. To us, it would be a nightmare beyond belief. And this wasn't just the poor. Even the wealthy, tucked away in castles, lived surrounded by rot and disease. Hygiene wasn't just bad, it was non-existent, and it shaped every part of life. Forget the idea of a refreshing daily shower. In the Middle Ages, bathing was considered not only impractical, but in some places dangerous. Public bathhouses existed early on, but they quickly gained reputations as brothels, cesspools of disease, or dens of sin. By the late Middle Ages, many towns outlawed them. Soap, when it existed, was harsh and expensive, often made from animal fat and lye. The average peasant might bathe once or twice a year, usually for special events like Easter or Christmas. Most people relied on linen underclothes to wick away sweat, but in reality, the layers of grime built up until the stench clung to the skin like a second outfit. Nobles often masked their odor with perfumes, oils, and powders, but underneath, they stank just as much. Doctors at the time even claimed that too much bathing could open your pores to bad air and cause illness. Ironically, avoiding cleanliness was considered healthy, but in reality, it trapped people in an endless cycle of filth. Now let's talk about the mouth, that grim cavern of rot in the medieval world. Dentistry, as we know it, didn't exist. Toothbrushes wouldn't appear in Europe until the 17th century. Instead, people rubbed cloth or sticks on their teeth or chewed herbs, hoping to scrape away the residue of mead, bread, and salted meat. Cavities spread quickly, abscesses festered, and teeth simply rotted until they fell out. Imagine sitting across a nobleman at a feast, jewels glittering on his fingers, fine wine in his goblet, but his smile revealing blackened stumps and a breath so foul it could knock you off the bench. Tooth pain was often so unbearable that people relied on blacksmiths, yes, blacksmiths, to yank out teeth with pliers. No anesthesia, no antiseptic, just a hope that infection wouldn't kill you afterward. Mouths weren't just disgusting, they were death traps. Cleanliness wasn't just about smell, it was about survival. Lice were so common that medieval people thought of them as a fact of life, not a problem to solve. Children had them constantly, adults too, and nick combs were used more often than forks. Fleas crawled freely in beds, on clothes, and hair. Rats thrived in these conditions, feeding on waste and spreading fleas of their own. And with those fleas came something far deadlier, plague. The Black Death of the 14th century didn't come from nowhere. It was born from centuries of filth, poor hygiene, and uncontrolled vermin. Every louse was a carrier of potential disease. Every flea bite was a gamble. And when the plague hit, killing half of Europe, no one made a connection to their disgusting environment. Instead, they blamed the stars, bad air, or even foreigners. Hygiene could have saved millions, but in the medieval world, dirt ruled everything. When nature called in the Middle Ages, the options were horrifying. Castles had guardraobes, simple holes in the wall where waste would fall into a pit, or worse, down the side of the castle, where it would collect in a stagnant heap. Peasants relied on chamber pots, which were emptied into streets, rivers, or communal ditches. Public latrines did exist in some cities, but they were often wooden planks set above cesspits so deep and foul that the stench could knock you unconscious. Stories survive of people literally falling into these pits and drowning in excrement. The Thames River in London was not a sparkling waterway, but an open sewer filled with human waste, animal guts, and industrial runoff from tanners and butchers. This contaminated water was often the same source people drank from. Diarrhea, dysentery, and cholera swept through populations like wildfire. The toilet problem alone made medieval life absolutely revolting. Clothes were not washed daily, or even weekly. Linen undergarments were supposed to absorb sweat and filth, but washing was rare. Instead, people would simply layer clean clothing over dirty ones, masking the smell without fixing it. Nobles draped themselves in fine velvets, silks, and furs, but those fabrics trapped lice and filth just as well as peasant wool. Shoes were rarely cleaned, so the mud and dung of the streets traveled into homes. In winter, when laundry was impossible, the stench of unwashed bodies and mildew-infested clothes must have been suffocating. Yet fashion mattered more than hygiene. People preferred to look impressive rather than smell tolerable. The irony is staggering. Nobles spent fortunes to appear regal, but underneath the glittering garments, they were just as filthy as the peasants they sneered at. Hygiene in the Middle Ages wasn't just disgusting, it was deadly. With no understanding of germs, filth fueled the spread of typhoid, dysentery, plague, and countless other diseases. A small cut could turn septic. Surgery was done with unwashed hands and filthy instruments, often leading to fatal infections. Childbirth was one of the most dangerous events in a woman's life, largely because of unhygienic conditions. Death was everywhere, and much of it was avoidable. But people lived in denial, trapped in superstition and ignorance. They believed that bad smells, miasmas, were the cause of sickness, but instead of cleaning, they burned incense or carried flowers to mask the odor. The true cause, their revolting hygiene, remained hidden for centuries. When we look back on the Middle Ages, it's tempting to romanticize the castles, knights, and festivals. But beneath the banners and pageantry was a world drenched in filth, streets overflowing with waste, bodies crawling with lice, mouths rotting from within, entire cities reeking of decay. Hygiene wasn't just an inconvenience. It shaped society, killed millions, and left scars that would last for centuries. The next time you step into a hot shower or brush your teeth, remember this. You are experiencing a luxury that most medieval people couldn't even imagine. To live clean was to live modern. And in the medieval world, filth was destiny.